I couldn't do it if I went blind, that comment that I receive all the time, I promise you, you could. We do not predict accurately how we will react or feel when we are put into a new circumstance. We as humans also fear change. But I, through my lived experience, have also learned that we are incredibly resilient. The out-of-pocket things that sighted people say to me, a blind woman, they are truly so unhinged. I hear these things in real life. I receive these in my comment section here on social media very frequently. These are things I've heard pretty much my entire life. These things include, but are not limited to, unfortunately, better you than me. I couldn't do it if I went blind. I'm so sorry. The moment I tell them that I'm blind, just, oh my God, I'm sorry. Apologizing to me for something they had nothing to do with. And a personal fave that I think almost everybody in the disability community has heard at least once in their life. If I went blind, I'd kill myself. How am I supposed to respond? Truly, what is my response supposed to be? Well, this video. This video is my response. These kind of comments are very jarring, and they made me want to look into it a little further. So I did some digging. I found some studies, some surveys. We've got research that back up why people feel these things when it comes to blindness specifically, out of all disabilities. Now, I am not going to cite each one verbally. I am going to, however, have all of this cited in the description box down below. So if you want to pull the exact study I'm referencing, you can do so. I don't want to bore everybody by interjecting that into the video, but I also want to make sure that you know I'm not just talking out my butt. So all of that's down below. Without further ado, here are some really sad, jarring statistics about the way sighted people feel about blindness. 79% of Americans say that other than their own death or the death of a close loved one, blindness is the worst possible outcome. Blindness is the worst possible thing that could happen to them. In all the possibilities, blindness is the worst. Twice as many people are afraid of going blind than heart disease and premature death. Heart disease, by the way, is like the #1 killer. Nearly 50% of Americans ranked going blind as the worst possible health outcome. That ranked over hearing loss, losing a limb, losing memory, or losing the ability to speak. If I couldn't talk, like, girl, it's all I do. All I do is run my mouth, and I always have. That would be rough for me. Americans fear vision loss more than they fear diabetes, cancer, HIV, stroke, heart disease, and other significant medical conditions. And finally, to round this fun statistic brain dump, 60% of Americans fear blindness and vision loss more than they fear developing a heart condition, which is the primary killer of both men and women in this country. But here's the thing. The reality is, majority of disabilities are acquired through age, accident, or illness. Blindness, in fact, is one of the more common conditions that happens as we age, meaning that this isn't just a far-off concept. Going blind can happen to anybody at any time. And I don't want people living with this negative idea of blindness. I don't want people fearing this reality so much. And the fact is actually that the number of blind and low vision Americans is expected to double by 2050. I always say that we are the only minority community that anybody can join at any time. And truly, like, when I do hear these statistics, when I do receive these comments, it does like twang my heart a little bit. Like, it makes me sad that this is the way people perceive my community, that they perceive my life to be such a devastating health outcome. But at the same time, when I reflect back, I do understand it because I lost the majority of my vision when I was 14 years old. My life completely changed over the course of about 6 to 8 months. I lost my vision much younger and much faster than the doctors had initially anticipated. I went from being able to read large print, see faces and colors, to being a screen reader user and unable to see any kind of like identifying characteristics, basically living with light and shadow perception. And so I know what it is like to go blind, and I know how I felt at that time. And the truth is, I wanted to end my life. I did not want to be blind because I perceived blindness the same way majority of society does. I perceived it the way that everybody around me spoke about it, as this thing that we need to cure, to fix, to change, to heal. I perceived it the way media perpetuated stereotypes about it, as, these people who can't live independently, who have no joy, they are not capable. And even when we think about doing things like blindfolding ourselves to simulate blindness, going to like a dinner in the dark restaurant, which I've done multiple times, or simulating any activity with your eyes closed or blindfolded, you are going from total sight and relying on your sight to do that task to total blindness like that, which is possible, but is really rare, right? There are people who go into surgery, it gets botched, they come out blind. I have multiple friends who have had traumatic car accidents, pew-pew violence, things like that immediately took them from 20/20 to total blindness or near total blindness in an instant. So it does happen, but majority, it does happen progressively, whether that is due to disease from birth, like me, or aging. And so you're not simulating something accurately, but also, frankly, that is how I felt too. Like when I went blind, I was bumbling around like an idiot not knowing how to do things because my whole reality was flipped upside down. But when you do live with blindness, you adapt, you pivot, you learn these skills. And I can tell you that more than 15 years later, I sit here so happy, so content, so fulfilled, not despite my blindness. But my blindness is included in my love of my life. My blindness is a part of what makes my life the life that I live every day, the life that I love so much. And as somebody who spent so much of my life, my whole life leading up to my vision loss, wanting to be cured, and then years post-vision loss, wanting to be cured, it's unfathomable, like unimaginable to that 14-year-old girl to ever think that adult me would sit here and say that like I truly don't think twice about the idea of being cured. It's not something that enters my mind very often, and when it does, it's not because I'm upset that I'm blind, it's because I'm frustrated about how hard something is to do because of how inaccessible the task is, not because I am incapable. So I know what it's like to go on that full journey. We also have studies that show that we as humans are not good predictors of future outcomes. We do not predict accurately how we will react or feel when we are put into a new circumstance. We as humans also fear change. But I, through my lived experience, have also learned that we are incredibly resilient. I couldn't do it if I went blind, that comment that I receive all the time. I promise you could. Because we don't know how strong we are until we are forced to flex that muscle. But when we are handed an unimaginable weight to bear, we carry it. I didn't have a choice to give up. Like I hit that rock bottom and it was miserable. And I was left with the choice of like, okay, end it or give myself one more shot. And thank God I did, because I live an incredible life today because of giving myself one more shot. But I chose happiness. I chose to not remain angry and bitter and resentful and a victim to my circumstance. And there's often a misquoted study around cancer health outcomes, that people with a positive attitude through their treatment have better outcomes than people with negative outlooks throughout their treatment. And that's not true. The study actually shows that regardless of your attitude, health outcome remains the same. But what it does show, that I think is actually more aligned with what I'm talking about today, is that those who choose to have a positive outlook and remain optimistic throughout their treatment look back at it with a more positive attitude. They are able to get through it with more comfort. They don't have as much depression and anxiety. They don't have as much fear throughout their treatment because they chose to remain positive. Choosing happiness doesn't negate my disability. It doesn't remove my blindness, but it makes my life a lot better. It makes my life a lot more tolerable and a lot easier. And I can say that the hardest parts of my life aren't me as an individual being blind. Doing my makeup for me today without a mirror, only by feel, is just as easy as you doing your makeup with a mirror, because I adapted, I adjusted, I accommodated the way we as humans are designed to do. We are so resilient. We are so good at pivoting and adjusting when we are pushed into a corner and have no other chance. But until we're pushed into that corner, we're not gonna do it because we like to stay in our nice little comfort zone. But when I am outside of my space that I've adapted and I figured out how to accommodate for myself, yeah, the world isn't accessible. And that's what makes blindness difficult. The world is mostly unintentionally ableist, and that makes life harder. And so what I find frustrating about this idea that people fear blindness so much and think so negatively about it is that means what we do as a society is prioritize and focus on curing it. Medical model, which does not provide equity to those of us living with blindness today. It means we continue to ignore the fact that the problem with blindness, the hardship of blindness, is society's attitudes and inaccessibility in our infrastructure and design. And we focus on curing future generations, which does not impact us today. And guess what? If you go blind tomorrow, it doesn't impact you. And that's why it's so important that we focus. Sure, we can still focus on medical stuff. I get it. There's always going to be people who want that. And that's fine. I'm not saying we shouldn't do that. But what I'm saying is we should show the positive. Remember that life continues. Life doesn't end when you go blind. A new existence begins. A new existence filled with a beautiful community, new experiences, developing more strength, compassion, all of these beautiful things. And we should show that side of blindness. We should focus on that side of it so that we can remember that it's important to change attitudes today and change infrastructure and design today for the life that we're living now as blind people. I often reflect on who I think I would be if I could see, the life I think I would have. And I reflect a lot on that because another thing that I often receive is people coming up to me and they will trauma dump all of these really objectively hard life circumstances on me and then say, but hearing your story reminds me it could always be worse. It's so wild to hear that. It hurts me so deeply because it is a reminder that people look at my life, my beautiful existence, as the worst possible existence that could happen. And I know it's not. But knowing that everywhere you go, people look at you like you have this sad life kind of sucks that that's the way people view you. And the thing is, I look at that, I'm like, no girl, like objectively yours is harder. Objectively you face more hardship. You just have sight. So you think your life is better than mine. That's the only thing you've got over me, is sight. But I don't view life that way. I look at the sighted version of myself and well, yes, there are times I idealize her when I'm deep in my feels and in a moment of grief. But overwhelmingly, when I look at the sighted version of myself, I think maybe she wouldn't be as close with her family because my parents are so involved in my life. They work full-time with my business. I talk to them every single day. I have the best relationship with my parents. I have such a great relationship with my brother. None of that might be true if I could see, because I think my family rallied because of the hardship we faced as a family. Because of my blindness, which was not just my reality, it was my whole family's reality. My whole family went blind when I went blind. They all had to adjust and adapt and change. And that brought us so incredibly close. That may have never happened. For all I know, we would have drifted apart. I might be still dating absolute a-holes on Tinder who only value me for my looks or really vapid things. And I might be doing the same back to them and never finding deep connection when instead I have a partner who is so compassionate and empathetic and caring and kind and loving and supportive. And that's a beautiful gift that I might not have received if I was sighted. I live a life with so much purpose and so much passion that is a direct result of living life as a blind woman. I have so much compassion and empathy for others and their lived experiences. I feel sometimes too deeply for others, but I think that's what makes me the person I am. And all of that is a direct result of my blindness. All of that makes my life so rich and so beautiful. I might be a selfish, self-centered, vain person who's lost and has no sense of direction. The amount of times my sighted girlfriends say to me, I envy the fact that you know who you are and the fact that you know what you were put here to do. Because I'm in my 30s and I still don't know who I am or what I'm doing or why I'm here. I'm just bumbling through life. And you know what? I have always known. All of that I received because of blindness. And yet other people with so much hardship would immediately discount all of that. Or not that those ideas of those things couldn't even enter their brains because all they see is that you're blind, so life sucks. And it's actually called the disability paradox. There was a whole term coined for this idea that non-disabled people view disability as one of the worst life outcomes. When studies, again, have proven, surveys have shown that disabled people are consistently ranking the way they view their joy and their happiness and their fulfillment of life way higher than sighted people or non-disabled people would anticipate they would rank their life if they were disabled. And these were people with significant disabilities being surveyed. Many disabled people report having a quality of life that is equal to or sometimes surpassing that of non-disabled people. Yet we live in a world where 82% of doctors believe that you cannot have a good quality of life if you're disabled. So there's significant mismatch of the lived experiences of disabled people with the way non-disabled society perceives the lived experience. And I often say that, like, when it comes to the idea of going blind, I could physically prepare. I could learn my O&M skills with a cane. I could learn how to read and write in Braille, but I could not emotionally prepare. I did not pre-grieve. The same way we know our parents will likely pass before us, but we do not grieve their loss prior to their death. We cannot anticipate the hole that our life will be left with when they're still in it. So we are not good predictors of the way we will feel and adapt. And mostly we focus on what we will lose and do not focus on what will remain the same in our lives and what we will gain. And again, I do get it, because when I went blind, all I saw is can't, won't, shouldn't. All of a sudden, like, things I quite literally would have never cared about, I was like, well, I won't be able to ever fly a plane. Miss Ma'am, when did you ever want to fly a plane? When was that ever in your plan for your life? Like, it didn't matter that I never would have wanted to anyways. The idea that I felt like I no longer would be able to was all I could see. But I couldn't see all the opportunity that blindness presented me. So I really want to impart on you that if blindness is something you fear, whether you are living with that as a known potential for your future, or whether it is just something that you've always had in the back of your mind as a scary thing, I want you to know that yes, it's hard, but we can do hard things. And on the other side of hard is so much beauty that may not ever exist in your life without that circumstance. We are resilient. We are designed to find strength within us. We are designed to adapt and pivot, and you can and will. Let's focus on making the world today a better place for those of us living with blindness and with disabilities, and not just on changing the future, the maybe. And if you want to learn more about my lived experience as a blind person and my vision loss journey, you can read my new memoir. It is a USA Today bestseller and was ranked #1 on Amazon in disability books. It's called Unseen: How I Lost My Vision But Found My Voice. And it does talk a lot about, you know, the journey that I went through, the down, the up, and everything in between. And I hope you love it. It's available in Braille through the NLS. It's available as an audiobook read by yours truly. Available in hardback. It's available in hardback and in Kindle. So I'll have it linked down below, along with all of the studies that I cited. I hope you enjoyed this video. And as always, I would really love to hear everybody's perspective on this topic in the comment section down below, whether you are somebody living with a disability or somebody who simply has feared it. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Until next time, you can click over here to hear about 10 things I am so over sighted people saying, because they annoy me so damn much. Or you can click over here for another video I think you might like. Bye.